Good morning and welcome back to Morning Express. So this is KTN News, where you get the whole story. And let's now return to our top story this morning. And the country is mourning the death of one of Kenya's most renowned comedians. Benson Wanjau, popularly known as Mzee Ojwang, died last evening at the Kenyatta National Hospital, where he had been receiving treatment for pneumonia. We can now speak to arts writer George Orido on the life and times of Mzee Ojwang. George, good morning. A very sad day for Kenya's art industry, as someone who not only covers theatre but is also a producer. What is your reaction to this tragic news? George? Hello? Hello? All right, appear to have lost George there, but we will be linking up with him. But I just want to go to some of the comments that have been coming through on social media following his death last evening. There has been a hashtag trending, rest in peace, Mzee Ojwang, and many Kenyans, leaders, everyone has just come out to send their condolences. And you remember the news broke earlier in the year of his ailment, as well as the deplorable condition he was living in. We'll be reading some of those as I just try to get where they are on my phone. But I understand George is back online. George, good morning. Talk to us about you know, what it is you remember and your thoughts having covered Mzee Ojwang, and of course in this particular sector or area of arts. Your thoughts on this news?
Good morning, Sophia.
Good morning.
Yeah, it's a sad day for Kenya to lose a man of such immense stature as Mzee Ojwang. He is Kenya's Charlie Chaplin. He is the father of Kenyan comedy. Many of Kenyans remember that the TV without Ojwang would not be with me. And for us, well, it was the Voice of Kenya when the TV was open at 5 p.m. We look forward to listen to Vioja with him. And without Ojwang, there was no action. For me, my condolences to the family and friends. Ojwang lived it. It was the element, the realm of Kenyan TV acting, and also slapstick comedy. It was so good. At his age, it was very hard to find any person who could act, not even in the way he did. And for that, he inspired many. For us to accept, also a film actor, when I was in high school, one of the things we did was just look at Ojwang. And just, you know, literally copy what we did on the TV program and reproduce it on stage at school. And in that way, you can look at him as a teacher, because in his acting, he taught so many people how to act. And he brought in a lot of ignorance. Yes. In the acting realm, when family, society frowned upon acting as a child. All right, briefly, George, also how do you describe the type of genre that we saw him play out on television, briefly? Sorry? How do you describe the type of genre that we saw him perform on TV for all these years? Yeah, that's why I call him the Charlie Chaplin of Kenya, because it is slapstick comedy. A comedy where you spontaneously think about the life and it relates to real life situations of people, become a mirror of the people. And make people laugh. George, I'll interrupt you because your line is not very clear. We cannot make out a lot of what you're saying, but we will get to link up with you later on the show. But Mzee Ojwang profile was born in 1937 in present-day Nyeri, but he managed to touch the lives of Kenyans with his comedy
all across the country. And here now is a look back at the life and times of the great, great thespian.
When he did his thing, he left everyone in stitches. Benson Wanjau, but who many Kenyans only remembered as Mzee Ojwang Hatari, graced every national moment of honor.
Unanipenda?
Nakupenda. On this occasion, he even performed at the launch of one of the East African Community Protocols.
Nakupenda. Kama East African Community.
Mzee Ojwang featured in the all-time famous Vitimbi comedies and the comical court drama series Vioja Mahakamani. But for all his fame, in March this year, Mzee Ojwang hit the headlines when he went down with multiple ailments that caused him to go blind on one eye. That caused a national storm as fellow actors accused their former employer KBC of neglect. The government later denied the allegations.
They are owed zero by KBC. They served out their contract and they were paid everything.
Help did arrive from Mzee Ojwang, but he would never grace the screens again. Mzee Ojwang was born in present-day Nyeri County in 1937 and is said to have dropped out of school in Form 2 owing to financial difficulties. He became a household name from the early 80s as the then Voice of Kenya. But the latter days of his life revealed an all too familiar path of many artists who put a smile on many faces, but leave the stage with tales of misery. Benson Wanjau, Mzee Ojwang Hatari, dead at 78. Jogeo, KTN News.
Indeed, and may his soul rest in eternal peace. And I just want to bring in my guest this morning on the way it is also to comment on this and condole with the family of Mzee Ojwang, Beatrice Elachi, who's Majority Whip in the Senate, also Moses Kajwang, Senator Homa Bay County, and Ambrose Weda, who's a lawyer. Begin with you, Elachi, and just seeing that, we all know and have known Mzee Ojwang for a very long time. I remember seeing one of the tweets yesterday that born a Kikuyu but lived his life and was known as a Luo pretty much, and in a country where some of these issues are big and significant. But that aside is seeing how his life has come to an end, and yet he was this great entertainer for a very long time in Kenya.
Thank you, Sophie. First, my condolences to the family, and also just to imagine that for us, we grew up knowing Ojwang was Luo, and today as he rests, I know that many Kenyans will remember him. But I just want to go back to my government and say that sometimes, as much as you'll say, because I've seen the CS saying they had paid their contracts, they owe them nothing. I think these are some of the heroes we are saying that as government we have to take care of that. So I'm just hoping as government we will take care of the burial of Kajwang, and we will look at his family and ensure at least one of the children who I know for him, maybe he made sure they've got an education, just see how they move on as a family, so that they will always remember the great, because it was not just the arts that he used to and the drama. I think he used to do a lot of civic education in that. So we have to remember that part of what Ojwang did was to create awareness on what is happening in government, what is happening in the country, why should we have cohesion. At one point I remember watching one of his programs and enjoying it, but in real sense what Ojwang was trying to just say, that family is a unity and you must appreciate the institution of family.
And Senator Kajwang, you get the sense that there was almost a warning from above, that things are really bad early on in the year when the story broke about how he was doing, going blind on one eye. and now he is gone, and at the time when you'd have expected concerted efforts to help him out, you see what CS there, some of the remarks that were being made. Does that say that perhaps not enough was done at that particular time?
Yeah, Sophia, bearing a name like Kajwang means that when I was growing up, children used to call me Ojwang, and they used to wonder whether that was my father. So that is how deep Mzee Ojwang influenced us when we were growing up. It is unfortunate that at his final moments, he was in the levels of poverty that we have seen on TV, and we have heard from Akina Mama Kayai saying that Ojwang had more or less been abandoned. Listening to the cabinet secretary saying that the government owes Ojwang nothing is extremely callous and very unfortunate. The problem with our nation is that we have glorified politicians to a level where even if you look at the doctor-patient ratio in Kenya, and then you look at the MCA electorate ratio in Kenya, we tend to invest more in politicians, and we only take people seriously if they were in politics. But people like Ojwang, who I concur with my colleague Senator Elachi, what Ojwang did was not just entertainment. He did also a lot of education. He did a lot of civic education. He helped people understand what an African family setting was like through his programs on Vitimbi and Vioja Mahakamani. And these are the heroes. And as we speak today, in a land far away, our Kenyan girls have won an international volleyball title, and no one is talking about it. When you look at the media headlines, we are still going on and on about our usual corruption tales that have never ended.
Well,
we need to redefine our definition of heroes in this country, and I think Ojwang deserves to be seen as a hero for the contribution he has made to this nation.
Brother.
I think I celebrate Ojwang's life. He has died at almost 80 years. That is a prime age that we thank God for. But above that, he is one of the few Kenyans who poured out to us, and he's left a legacy that is worth emulating, because he made a contribution in our lives, and that is why we know him. I really do not think that life is about making money or having money. It's about pouring out the talent, and we are all guilty. Why are we guilty? We steal from the artists. We dub their music, we watch free, we actually steal. It's not government, it's us not valuing art, stealing it, dubbing it, counterfeiting it. If we could come up with laws and regulations like in America, they just hit some bunch of teens, and it's called music, and it's guarded, and you make your money. Here the talents are there, but we don't cover. I think, to me, Ojwang has done very well, and may he go. I hope he died knowing Jesus Christ, so that he will rise again. And let's not worry about how he died. He is gone and he is poured out, and that is very good. Let those who are alive also pour out their talents for us.
All right. Okay, thank you. We're going to link up now with my colleague Ian Wafula, who is at Eastlands, where Ojwang lived. Ian, good morning. Talk to us about what's happening there this morning, what the mood is, and who's there.
Good morning to you, Sophia. A sad day here indeed. We just arrived at Motela Estate. We are just right outside the home of Benson Wanjau, popularly known as Mzee Ojwang. And as at right now, what we have is that the wife and daughter are currently inside. Of course, it has been a long night since the passing of Mzee Ojwang yesterday at 8 p.m. And of course, they're just trying to come to terms. We talked to them off camera, and of course, they just wanted us to give them time to, accept what has happened before they can come to talk to us. And it's quite a somber mood here. A Kenyan hero has passed on, and in the eyes of very many people are asking, is this how we celebrate Kenyan talent? Remember that for many years Mzee Ojwang had entertained the Kenyan scene through his popular TV show Vitimbi, and of course very many people had expected that he's going to lead a life that was matching up to his job and to the amount of work he has done to serve this nation through entertaining us. Remember that he's also performed at various public functions in front of leaders, and for him to pass on at in such a condition, very many people are quite disappointed. Sophia?
All right, and talking to the family, you said they're there, of course, just trying to come to terms with this. And are there any other people? Have you seen any leaders, neighbors? What is it they're saying?
In fact, Sophia, if I can just say, we are the only people here, and the neighbors. Normally you'd expect that by now maybe leaders have made their way here, or members of the public, but we're not seeing anything. The family is just inside the house and they're all alone. So in fact, we just continue to wonder what exactly this is. This is not the kind of situation normally when you see, for instance, when a leader has passed on, or someone who has been widely celebrated in the nation. We're not seeing people here, Sophia. We're actually the only people. Quite sad, I must say.
Yeah, and you'd imagine at least even fellow thespians, those that were with him, in some of these programs he was involved, or that, interacted with him in one way or another. So really sad that that's happening. But Ian, we will definitely continue to link up with you as you watch and track that story for us in the coming hours to get more updates. Ian Wafula, sadly there, telling us the family waking up, and at such difficult moments, everyone hopes that you will have your family and friends come to be with you, and for them to be alone, just paints a picture of what this journey has been for them, like even for the past several months when Mzee Ojwang had been ailing prior to his death last evening. But it's a story we'll continue to bring you. But many Kenyans coming out on social media, Mzee Ojwang, that hashtag trending top in Kenya, and just some of the tweets coming through. We all have the rising time, and comes a day when sun sets on us. We celebrate Mzee Ojwang, is what Cornelius Motana here is saying. Another one, his comic clips will remain valid for many years. He never portrayed Kikuyism nor Luo. Rest in peace, legend. That's Chief Rolex who tweeted. Sharon Mariwa, sad to hear about the death of Mzee Ojwang. He was a legend. May his soul rest in peace. So keep your tweets coming, your messages of condolences, to condole with the family, and of course wishing them that peace and comfort at this very difficult time, and that his soul rest in peace. We'll continue to sample those your tweets as we go along on the show this morning, and also we'll be speaking with George Orido later on, who will just paint for us a picture of what his journey has been like, unfolding from the very many years he graced our screens, and to his demise, and the sad manner in which that played out, very unfortunately. But let's now shift gears this morning. Time for the way it is. It is about 7:30. We want to get into some of the stories we've been covering for you as well. And ladies, gentlemen, we want to begin with matters corruption. Let's talk about what has now emerged, and it's the members of parliament, the resolution to send home the CEO and the deputy CEO of the EACC. That is yet to be submitted to the president, according to his spokesperson yesterday, where he says when it is delivered, then he will make a decision as to whether to accept or not. But there's been already a lot of criticism on that particular resolution by the members of parliament, many saying president should not assent to this particular bill. Whether your thoughts?
It's strange when they sit there and pass a law, then they want to send it to the president. They say, please, Mr. President, don't assent to this law. I think that is putting the president in a very strange situation. If Parliament chose the path of reconstitution, then I think let's reconstitute everything. Start afresh. I keep on saying that corruption is like adultery. You will not catch people in the act, but you can see from their conduct that there's some corruption. So if everybody in that team is being suspected, let us move afresh again, especially when you see that some people have large chunks of land. I alluded to this prior to 2013 elections, when some people wanted to bar others from running, and we said, look, let's buy everybody, because all these bigwigs have very big skeletons in their wardrobes, and NY's land was one of them. So if we are reconstituting and moving forward, then reconstitute.
So you're in favor of reconstituting. However, that would come at a time that the commissioners are out. This would be a process to then get them back in place, and yet there are all these investigations and cases that are still ongoing. Doesn't that just throw the war on graft out there with no one pretty much in office?
A reconstitution would be, if we don't posture around, would be a matter of 30 days. We have reconstituted, we have put in people with the energy and the spine to deal with the issues of corruption in line with what the president has put in place. You can see that the president wants us to tackle this and wants us to join him. If we realize that EACC is also posturing in one way or the other, then reconstitution would be a better way, but fast. It's quick. We don't have to take years. But you know, the MPs, some of them are very afraid of a serious EACC.
All right, Elachi, Transparency International has come out to criticize this kind of a move, LSK and other organs as well. Do you share those concerns that they have expressed?
You know, Sophie, from us, from the Senate, from the beginning of the whole procedure of the list, we always said it was done wrong. We always felt that we wish we would have tackled it in a better way. So for me now, if it comes to the Secretariat, as the Senate will say yes, because I think we sat down, it was a committee of legal and justice, but friends came in to just listen, and we felt yes, I think the whole commission should go. It does not mean that the CEO cannot reapply, and for the sake of just making it more, because at the moment, who will ever trust it? Even if you bring in new commissioners, those who are vindicated at that time do not feel it is the commissioners who send them home. They feel it is the Secretariat that send them home. And we keep on asking ourselves, when you looked at the list, there were some names that were punched out. For real, I mean, because when you read the list and then you find and that is why the Senate was very critical. As an institution, we felt no, the procedure was done wrong. So for me, for now, I don't see why, when we were removing the commissioners, we were so fast. And now we've touched the CEO, it becomes an issue. I need to understand why. I need to understand.
Because then it becomes left, it's vacant after that. What happens to the cases that are ongoing? What happens to those that have stepped aside, need their process done so they can go back to office?
And the president gives them 60 days. And from now, when we started, I think they need to have told us they are finalizing the list. Not that there's still a big list awaiting to go to court. Or they need to have told us, yes, as a Secretariat, we have cleared 200 people who will not go to court. We have 10, 15 who their cases should be in court now, which we don't see. We only see Kamau and Gilu. And then you come to this other side of the DPP, I have no idea how many are there. So even at the moment, the process itself, that's why I'm saying, Kenyans are asking themselves, the president came out, 60 days, I want to see something. We are about to finish 60 days. I think we are finishing now.
No, those expired a while back.
Yeah. So now, can they expire also? I'm sorry to say that, Sophie.
Okay, Senator.
Sophia, the amendments that were raised last week, I think we need to be fair to the nation and talk to those amendments, the specific amendments. One, we are converting the commissioners at EACC from full-time commissioners to part-time commissioners.
Right.
And that's quite a significant shift from what we've had. The Matemu and company were full-time guys who would wake up in the morning and go straight to Integrity Center and spend there the entire day. We had a situation where the commissioners were full-time and a full-time secretariat. In that kind of arrangement, as a secretariat, you know there's a boss who will be there every day. When you change the rules and say that you're going to have part-time commissioners, people will probably be coming just for governance purposes a few days in a week or a few days in a month. Then you also have to rejig the secretariat. And this is what prompted the members of the National Assembly to say, if you are bringing in part-time commissioners, let us also then subject this secretariat to a vetting process so that the part-time commissioners who come in can be given the opportunity to get a secretariat that they'll be able to work with. And I think that really makes a lot of sense. It has been made clear that these guys are not going to leave immediately. Of course, you'll need to have the commissioners appointed and then the commissioners to go through the entire process of getting a proper secretariat. So these guys are not leaving the next day. The only thing that poisons the entire exercise is the manner in which it was executed or it was opposed in the National Assembly. We got to a situation where even within the Jubilee coalition, there are those who are saying that the leader of majority decides to walk out and decides to take a highly ethnic position on a matter of national importance. We cannot reduce corruption to an issue of settling scores and an issue of shielding ethnic supporters.
So you are in favor of them getting out?
I think the reasoning behind it makes a lot of sense. Sophia?
However, isn't this an administrative process in as far as the Secretariat is concerned? Why MPs in the legislative level, who should one imagine be handling matters, the Commission, coming down to the Secretariat? Can't that be handled administratively?
Unfortunately not, Sophia. When you make the commissioners part-time, then power goes to the Secretariat, and therefore the Secretariat cannot escape the scrutiny of Parliament. I think the National Assembly was doing its job. It probably had good intentions at the start, but suddenly along the way we start hearing people saying these guys must go because they are targeting people from our community. These guys must stay because they come from our community. That is where we start losing. In fact, we are putting the president in a position where he's damned if he signs the bill, he's damned if he doesn't sign the bill. I think we need to look at the intention, and I think the intention was noble. We should not discolor it with our usual ethnic positions.
Yeah, because whether you say 30 days, many would feel it's unlikely that this will all unfold and in 30 days will be other people in office. In terms of ensuring that this war on graft is not taken off course, is derailed because of this leadership trying to figure out all of that. So what is it you say? Because he says there are those who are reading malice in all of what's happening now.
The war on graft is a very, very murky exercise. So people will read things according to where they are. You can see that Honorable Duale is now reading some script that could have been made in Mandera or Dadaab or somewhere. He's now not reading with the government, he's not reading with the president, he's not reading with Parliament. So if doing what is right will cost time, will cost some people anger, I think it is a price worth being paid. Just like what Senator Kajwang has said, if we make the commissioners part-time, we have to know who exactly is going to be there at the Secretariat. It's not a matter of the Secretariat having a Somali or a Luo or a Kisi, but the right person. These people collectively, the commissioners who went and the ones who exist, they bear part of the blame. They slept on the job until the president just became mad. So I think it is time that we clear. If they were good, they come back. If they were not, we put in other Kenyans. We see it's a question of trying. Because when you want to investigate people who are holding billions of shillings, it's a very tricky affair.
Senator Lashif said something that had the former Prime Minister as well say yesterday, that there are names you believe in the 175 lists that were expunged. And he even went ahead to say that as court they'll be releasing those names that were removed from that list later on this week. So where is this going to go? Because it appears it's going to now also be taking a life of its own, in as far as first there are those who are alleged to be manipulating things that are already on the list to make sure this goes a certain way to derail. Then now we're hearing their names that were removed from this list.
And I think why I say that is because there's one thing we believe in. When you stand in for an institution, you stand in for an institution. That was the stand of the Senate. That was the stand. And that's why even when we were debating, we were very cautious in terms of really saying so and so now is correct. We said, let it go to court. The court will prove whether you are guilty or not guilty. But also, having said that, I think when I listened to the National Assembly on Thursday, and I don't know why the Speaker did not catch, or anyone did not catch, one of the members who just stood and say, in this House, we are now xenophobic, and you're trying to marginalize some of our minority communities. For me, that was very wrong. Because right now, the same community that says they are being marginalized, I think they are majority in many of the institutions than even the other communities that will say popularly, I mean by population, they are high. So it is wrong. That one was very wrong. And then, when you see the spirited, and that's why Senator Kajwang will tell you, when you look at that, as a country now you say, look, if this is how you have been doing the things, it means even in the list, if we bring in of a minority, this is how you people will debate. You'll go so ethnic, so down like that, because they went down completely. And as a country, that is when now you come in, and I'll urge the President, that is when you come in and just say, look here, if it has become now an ethnic issue, then let me just clear the whole process. Have new people come in where Kenyans will say, now, these are not the ones who are favored. Because right now, if you ask Kenyans, some will tell you, look, does it mean so and so is so favored than the other? Yeah, so for me, I want to see a clean thing, give confidence back to Kenya, and when we move, Kenyans now will feel, okay, fine. And we are not saying the Secretariat will leave tomorrow. We are saying they'll be handing over to the next team.
So they stay put up until there's a process.
Yes, the process goes, because they have to hand over the cases. If they leave now, who hands over the cases? Who, even the new team that comes in will not understand. So I think they are staying put. They have a right to apply, so that even them, they will feel we are joining a new team together and starting on a slate together.
Yeah, let's talk about that story that ran on the Standard on Saturday. NYS Land Probe sent EACC bosses packing, and the allegations that 5,000 acres of land in Machakos County were grabbed, and one of the people that are accused of being part of the grabbers is a former vice president. Reading that report, Kajwang, Senator, what are your thoughts?
I think this is just the usual conspiracy theories that we've been treated to. There are a lot of varied perspectives on why the EAC bosses went packing. This is just one of the dimensions. There is a dimension that the EACC guys were too hard on politicians from Rift Valley. There is a dimension that were too hard on politicians from Central.
But with this particular story is because this land, the 5,000 acres, is said to belong to NYS, and there has been this very heated, sustained narrative against NYS and around the devolution ministry, and so it is seen as because of that as well, and EACC, that somebody somewhere does not want certain things to come out.
Sophia, the issues of corruption in state institutions. I was at a livestock conference about 2 weeks ago, and the Commissioner General of Kenya Meat Commission presented to us a list of land parcels that have since been grabbed or have disappeared, and they can't tell. That is just a similar, and some of the land holdings are much bigger than this 5,000 acres that is being reported here. Any form of corruption ought to be investigated. And I think if the NYS land was taken away, we should have seen that in the list of 175 individuals that was presented to the National Assembly and to the Senate. Now, that then lends credence to what our party leader said the other day, that the list that was presented to the President was doctored. And this is not an issue that has just started the other day. I remember when we were debating this particular matter in the Senate, Senator James Orengo presented the list that had been submitted to the Justice Committee of the Senate. The Speaker ruled it out on a technicality, that it had not been certified as a true copy by the originating authority.
Right.
The reality, Sophia, is that there are a lot of corruption cases that are not being investigated simply because the people involved in them probably are friends to the commission or to the secretariat, and this is what we need to get rid of. We do not want a commission or a secretariat that takes partisan positions or pursues issues of corruption in a manner similar to a vendetta. We want a commission that will fear none and will go after corruption, big and small, without consideration that some people are. Look at, now, you brought in the issue of NYS. If you look at the questions that had been put to Anne Waiguru and the entire structure that was involved in NYS, some of those issues were not very different from what had been alleged on the part of other cabinet ministers. We have been asking, in this animal farm, are there some animals that are more equal than the other? So we need an EACC that has got teeth, that has got a spine, that can go after corruption cases irrespective of the individuals who are implicated.
And I imagine these are the conversations that happened before other EACCs and their bosses were gotten out of office. So what is it that gives you confidence that going forward, yes, we have new commissioners, new people in the secretariat, won't we have the same script replayed after a couple of years? So different cast, but pretty much it appears we don't get this right, or they're just these forces that will ensure we're in this vicious cycle all the time.
It will not matter much whoever commissioners you get. All you need first is the political goodwill, and that political goodwill must come first from the house on the hill, the president himself. Luckily this one, His Excellency President Uhuru, is the first to say, I want us to fight corruption. So if that goodwill continues, anybody who is desirous of helping the president as a commissioner would succeed. Now that has been lacking before, the goodwill from the head of state. Because if you look at like NYS land, this one was being held by number 2. He lives on that land. It's not something we don't know. That's where the home is, and he needs to confess before Jesus Christ and say, forgive my sins as we forgive others. So that fight would be well if we got those who are vigorous and they are in tune and supported by the president. For now, the president is out to fight corruption, and that's all you need.
That's all you need, Senator Elachi, political will?
And then at the end... Yes, I think it needs political will, but at the same time, you know, I don't know, this country, we are just... The fights we fight are very interesting fights, I'm sorry to say, because now we are on NYS land in Yatta. We've just left the deputy president's one. When we fight such things politically like this, we end up in a lacuna that we cannot come out ourselves. So for me, I would say, if indeed this is land of NYS, then it has to take its course. The normal way, the normal procedure. Let us not now make it a political issue, because that's the same way we did with the DP. I mean, from nowhere we just made the issue of, we build it politically, and we have no, when you're asked now in black and white, put it on the paper, you have nothing, because it's just political temperatures rising. So we want to now start another political temperature because of now land, which will end up again political temperature back to devolution. I think we need to stop that. Okay. Yeah. Let's talk about another institution. EACC will watch that story as it develops. But the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission released a strategic plan last week. CORD has criticized the same, saying they were not consulted. They had asked the IEBC to delay the launch. That did not happen. They went ahead with it. But even if all of these considerations were put in place, Senator Kajwang, would that have gotten CORD, ODM in particular, happy with IEBC? Because it's not about a strategic plan that they have issues with IEBC, or how do you see it?
Sophia, just on the tail end of the last discussion, let me say that you do not build a reputation by intention. By saying the president has got the intention to fight corruption, that has to crystallize into action. that is when we will have a legacy. You don't build a legacy by saying, I really wanted to do it. You build a legacy by actually getting it done.
So what do you want him to do?
We need to see action. He's got intention, yes, but we are not seeing that intention crystallizing into action.
So what do you specifically want him to do?
No, the president
What
needs
is the action you want to see?
Sophia, there are 5 ministers, cabinet ministers. There are more than 5 permanent secretaries. The president himself said that there's corruption in my office, the office of the president. We do not want him to just declare his intention to fight it. We want to see him taking action, and we are not saying that it sends people to jail, because he does not have powers to send people to jail, but he's got powers to fire the people who demonstrate economic,
Is he asking that due process be followed? You as a lawyer would ask.
There is and that's why I've said I don't expect the president to send anyone to jail. It is not his
job. So what action do you want today?
He must get those people out of office. The people.
On what basis?
Because he has said that there's corruption in my office. By the time the president says, there's corruption in my office, he knows what he's talking about. The president is a hiring and firing authority for everyone who works in his office. He needs to crack the whip so that even if these people are being investigated, they are being investigated when they are not in a position to steal passwords and to create fictitious claims in the systems. Going back to the IEBC, I've looked at the strategic plan, and it is a 62-page document, and I can tell you it falls short of addressing the key issues that it says it wants to address. The only thing that strategic plan looks at would be internal reforms. It is more of a document that could have been crafted by some management consultants. What we need out of a strategic plan coming from the IEBC, one would be, how do you inspire trust and confidence amongst Kenyans? And number 2, when it comes to the electoral process, what are the significant things that need to be done so that when you're going into 2017, we do not have any shade of doubt that the IEBC, as an umpire that is supposed to be neutral, has not been compromised in any way. When court said that it had requested for consultation, first of all, the political parties liaison committee is a creation of the IEBC. In fact, in that strategic plan, IEBC counts it as one of its achievements when it reflects on its last strategic plan, that it recommended the setting up of a political parties liaison committee that would make it easy for the IEBC to reach out to political parties. This is one body that feels that it was left out. In fact, when they had a meeting with the IEBC, there was no meeting. Probably you can say that they're having their own issues, leadership issues, but that just tells you that the political parties were not properly consulted. Some of the biggest stakeholders in an electoral process, Sophia, beside the ordinary voter, are political parties.
But can you make them happy? Because the thing is, CORD is approaching this with their views were not brought in. So if everyone argues that way, that you don't see what it is you want, is that even ever possible that you will have how it is you envision something to work?
We are not saying we want to be happy.
But how come you're the only ones that are against this?
Well, there's CORD and Jubilee. There are 2 significant political blocs in this country. CORD has stated its position. I have not heard Jubilee pronounce its position on the matter. They'll probably do it. I don't know whether my colleague, the senator, will talk about it. But CORD has taken its position on the matter. We are not saying that IEBC should not reform or IEBC should not do a strategic plan. But when you come up with a strategic plan that addresses significant issues that have been raised on the electoral process, then it is important to consult the important stakeholders. Sophia, do not forget that after the last election, IEBC did an internal review. It did a review on the electoral process in 2013. It came up with some very significant findings. Some of the findings that IEBC came up with, it was surprising, because they are the same things that IEBC had denied in court. But in its own internal report, it kind of reinforced those issues. When you look at this strategic plan, you do not see a link between that 2014 report and the strategic plan that they want us to use to go into the next election.
Whether you've seen the kind of criticism that has been directed towards IEBC, especially from CORD, Raila Odinga himself has been on the front line on that. Do you ever see, and what would that IEBC look like, that would make all parties happy going into 2017, which is just 2 years down?
First of all, let me tell you, a strategic plan is just a plan within an internal working document required by law that before they spend, they have a strategic plan. Performance contracting requires that you work it according to your plan. That is all they have. But you see, CORD would want to have some traction, something they cling on as they run towards elections. And nothing is coming. A referendum is not coming. Now it is a strategic plan. Tomorrow it will be corruption, and next time it is Waiguru. But all this seems to be just fizzling out. What I would say is that CORD hit the IEBC very hard after the last elections. They took away IEBC's credibility. Then, as fate would have it, the chicken gate also came out, now confirming, sealing the coffin on IEBC, so that it will take them a lot of time to get credibility. Nothing short of changes, a few people leaving and saying, okay, we have to leave so that others come in. But an umpire, an election umpire, will never satisfy both sides. Every time in this country a loser. I have been to elections and I have never been convinced that I lost. I was always rigged out. That's the trend. Whoever loses is rigged out. So you cannot satisfy everybody. The process is what is made to be well, and that requires cooperation on both sides. But as to whether people, each side will leave there cheering, I can tell you even Dida, presidential candidate Dida, strongly feels that he was rigged out, and if the IEBC acted very well, he would be the president. So that we accept.
Senator, I'll ask you this because Jubilee on this particular one has not come out. We've not heard whether they are happy with this strategic plan, whether they felt sufficiently consulted, whether their thoughts were put in place. So that there's nothing that has been said so far. Number two, as CORD has made all of these claims and wants all of these things done, again, Jubilee, even some of the leaders have at times come out to defend the IEBC, giving credence again to those who say that there is some form of workings behind the scenes. So what is it you see and feel that Jubilee must do going forward so that you, if you desire at least to do so, delink yourselves from this association that appears to be working with in cahoots for some end?
Well, Sophie, first I want to go back to the topic of corruption and say that I think the president has always been very clear, the president himself, very clear in how he would wish we deal with corruption and how he would wish the institutions that are given that responsibility will ensure we've seen the end, and we have seen some people also getting into court, and for me I always say freeze the accounts and bring back the money. But the issue of IEBC, I want to say that it's unfortunate, because for me, first as the Secretary General of APK, I know at one point IEBC sent the document when it was still raw, and it sent to all political parties. But I know at then there was a time we felt the issues that the political parties raised were not really taken in consideration. But this is an internal document, a strategic plan. And I believe most of the things was to help the internal running of IEBC. Yes, we are stakeholders, but when it comes to election, definitely all political parties will be on board. So there is no way IEBC, whether they have their strategic plan or not, will not consult and say, and they cannot use that strategic plan if political parties feel at this time now we are moving to an election, we don't need, what we need is this, let us look at your findings, this is how the action plan to elections will be. And we have done that, this is the first time now we are talking even about the strategic plan. For all those years, even 2013, they had do you know we never even bothered, and we were there. We never bothered to know, do they have a... No, I know how we run these elections in our country. When it comes to election, all parties are on board. Even we redesigned that PPLC because political parties now bring in also new members. They will tell you now, instead of the SG, so-and-so is the one who will sit on that.
But Senator, do you agree that the Jubilee's action or inaction in whatever sense has fueled this perception that there is something to hide or not to bring out to...
I don't know what we are hiding, and we are in 2015, really. What are we hiding? Because for me, I believe, okay, from the word go after 2013, as Weda said, the credibility of IEBC indeed was eroded by court after the presidential candidate felt that, look, you rigged this election, and from that time, what IEBC should be having in their strategic plan, number one, activity number one, gaining back their confidence to the people. Yeah. That one they have to work hard, and as Jubilee we've told them, you are behaving as if your eye is not independent. You are behaving as if your eye is something that needs to be told, look here, your eye. I think their eye independent says it's an independent institution. It has to come out and claim its independence.
This is the way it is. We'll continue with our discussion shortly. But I want to interrupt that to go back to a story we are following for you. Of course, if you have not heard yet, Mzee Ojwang of Vitimbi fame over many years on our screens passed on last night. He'd been suffering from pneumonia, and Ian Wafula has been in his house this morning. Earlier on when we spoke, he was saying that there was no one, no neighbors, no friends, no extended family with his widow and children there, and he's now standing by with his widow to just, you know, talk to us more about what's happening there. Ian. All right, I understand we're having a bit of a technical hitch there, no sound from Ian, but as soon as we have that sorted out, we'll get to link up with him and get to hear from Mzee Ojwang's widow, who's at their home in Eastleigh, so do stay with KTN for that. But let's shift gears and continue our discussion this morning on The Way It Is, discussing the big stories that have been dominating news headlines in the past several days. Before we went on break, we were talking about IEBC, that strategic plan that was launched last week, and court has come out to say they were not consulted and therefore do not have confidence in IEBC going forward. And ladies and gentlemen, we even had of talk about boycotting 2017 elections. But before we go to that, Senator Kajwang, let me ask you, you know, now there's Ojwang Kajwang. I'm trying to make sure I don't use the wrong name. I paint a picture, and we're talking with somebody. Imagine a football game, and there are these two teams, you know, with each with their fans. And one team has told their fans for the period of time they've been preparing for this game that, you know what, the ref in that game today is just bad. He is not a good guy. He's not fair. He's biased. He's corrupt. He's all of these things. Yeah. And so there you are at the game. Would you accept any result that would come out from that? And how do you balance that with, granted, on one hand, you cannot sweep away the issues that are standing out?
And that's why, Sophia, we think if we did some consultation in coming up with this strategic plan, we are calling it a strategic plan, but really the right term for it would be the roadmap to the next election. If there was some consultation, and if we could get to a level where we are saying, fine, we probably don't like the guy running the commission, but the plan and the rules and the laws relating to elections are so tight that an individual's bias will not change the outcome. You know, at the end of the day, as a Kenyan, we all have someone we support. We will never get an IEBC chair who does not support somebody, unless we get someone from Guyana or a different country. But look at that roadmap to the next election, Sophia, and ask yourself whether it is fair to leave out the key stakeholders that are political parties. This is not an internal document, as my brother Weda has put it, because I've looked at that strategic plan. It attempts to define certain significant things that are even beyond the control of IEBC that need to be done before the next election. So one of them, to give you an example, the IEBC has attempted to define some of the electoral reforms, some of the legal reforms that need to be undertaken. In fact, they've given themselves a very ambitious timeline that by 2015 September, some of these laws should have gone through Parliament and they should have been enacted. You are not going to succeed in Parliament if you start with a very poisoned environment the way we have it. At the end of the day, we cannot say that the IEBC is like a private organization, like Equity Bank, that can do its strategic plan and then give it to shareholders at an annual general meeting. Unfortunately, IEBC is a public institution, and part of our national values public participation is part of it. But in the electoral process, it is extremely important that we bring on board the political parties. We are not seeking 100% concurrence, because I see with our political system, where CORD concurs 100%, probably Jubilee might not concur 100%. But we are seeking for some level of agreement. In Kenya, and this is not a small matter, elections is what gets people killing each other. Look at the history of tribal clashes in this country. They are all tied to elections. You have not seen Kenyans going to the street to kill each other because of corruption. You have not seen Kenyans killing each other because of the cost of living, or homosexuality, or poor governance. It is because of elections. And if we trivialize this particular matter, and if you look at the last elections, probably what saved us was some collective agreement within the political class that the electoral process, even though it was not perfect, the build-up to it was good enough to go into the elections. If today in 2015, 2 years ahead of the next elections, we start castigating and we start branding IEBC as a body that is completely incompetent and incapable of running the next elections, it is unfortunate that the kind of bloodshed that we saw in the 2007-2008 elections might come up. So let us not take this thing lightly, because you have seen in the past that we kill each other over the political process. So
if things don't change, IEBC remains as is, whatever it is you're pushing for now in terms of strategic plan is not roped in, what happens? You boycott? You don't participate in the elections?
Boycotting elections is a legitimate recourse that any political player has, but it is the last option. We are, I think people are very quick to analyze the comment that we are going to boycott elections. That is when all else fails. I believe there's still a lot of room for us to engage. I believe that IEBC, wherever they are sitting in their ivory towers, they are also listening to the cries and the wishes and the will of the nation. I believe that we shall find some common ground. We should not put this nation to a level where it is either my way or no way. We as an opposition, we know that. At the end of the day, Kenya belongs to all of us. We would not want to see Kenya unraveling, and then we say, you see, it is Jubilee that has brought down the country. Okay. We are all for the best interest and for the well-being of this nation. So I am sure we are going to find a way along the line. But boycotting elections, it is a legitimate recourse, but it is a final recourse. Whether
I'll ask you the same question I put Senator Elachi about Jubilee, and do you get the sense they could do more, and as far as, say, perhaps these concerns being raised, also coming out and saying, okay, so these are legitimate concerns, let's do something to fix it together, so that then you don't appear like you're just standing on the side quietly or in support of IEBC because of other plans?
First of all, let me clarify. I don't think Jubilee is quiet. Jubilee is busy building railway, doing the fighting, bringing back security to the country. They are very busy. CORD, on the other hand, either they don't know whether they want the entire IEBC to go, or they don't want the strategic plan. They are flossing over left, right, and center. Jubilee cannot accept to be drawn into that. CORD should settle. Do they want IEBC out? If that is what they want, their Jubilee counterparts, they look at it and then a decision is taken. What do they want? Do they want the strategic plan out? That one they go and tell IEBC, we don't want this, get it out. That one you will not draw somebody busy with that $1 trillion railway to Nairobi to be dealing with that. You can't spread yourself. But I think IEBC itself, the chicken gate took away a chunk of their credibility, and they needed some bold step, either from heaven itself or from within. From within means some people actually needed to have taken a walk into the park. That is the redemption that is needed once the chicken gate came out. And having lost that credibility, I keep on saying Raila Odinga has 5 million supporters. 5 million mathematically, when you work it out, is about the 40 million is a large chunk. When he keeps on saying you rigged this election, you're a thief, you are what, you lose a lot of credibility very quickly. So that punctured IEBC. So they take that blame, as the IEBC is now wobbling, take that blame, and you keep on puncturing. A decision has to be taken. Will we go to election with them or not? or will we not take their strategic plan, or are we boycotting? Even boycott, take it early enough.
Okay.
So that if you boycott,
boycott early.
yeah, take it early enough so that we prepare.
But things might change.
Sophia, considering I'm the sole code representative here, I think we have been very, very clear on what we want with the IBC. If you look at our draft bill, what we are calling the Okoa Kenya draft bill, we have made significant proposals on electoral reforms. And what we wish, because the IBC is also making certain proposals on electoral
revolving the
reforms.
chairmanship.
No, they don't revolve the chairmanship.
That is one of the proposals. 1 year. Okoa bill, I have that. The chair 1 year seats from the commission, 1 year they change.
Yes,
that is what your bill says, unless you have not read it yourself.
We have just picked one thing that sounds more juicy than others. What I'm trying to say
but
is
it's there. It's not about something juicier.
We have spoken about issues of election petitions. We have talked about the composition of the commission itself. So we have come up with some very broad and bold proposals. So it will be very untrue for my brother Weda to say that we are not clear on what we are saying. At the end of the day, and this my party leader said it, that for any process, even if you go into a referendum, it has to be conducted by an electoral commission. So you cannot say that disband it and then you end up with a crisis. We are very alive to that particular factor. We are very, very clear on what we want. And where we wanted IBC to just plug in is that they've also come up with certain electoral reform proposals that are similar to codes. What you need is to build concurrence at an early stage, so that these things can go through easily.
You had something to say?
Yes, I think I want to tell my code brothers and sisters, you don't need to have fear. Either you have fear, you realize that now, as we move on, things are working and Jubilee again is going to win. And therefore you start now making, you bring in a mood in the country, people will start wondering, why is it? Because today if you go in the village and ask anyone, what was wrong with the strategic plan? At one point they'll tell you, because I support this side, the strategic plan was good. At the other point, without even reading the strategic plan, they'll say it's a bad strategic plan. It's going to make us lose the elections. The strategic plan will not make anyone lose the election. The election is determined by Kenyans. They don't use a strategic plan. They wake up in the morning, they want to vote for Senator Homabay, they will vote for him. So for me, as we move on, what CORD should now really leave the country to move forward is in a mood that is more of peace, cohesion. Because when we continue now politicizing everything that comes out from IEBC, you bring fear even to your 5 million people, because they are wondering, if we wake up now, are we winning or are we just losing? So that fear should come out. Now the young people who are now busy, and that's another thing, we've had a lot of young people always not doing anything. Today they are busy, they are working. So for them, they have no business about strategic plan or what.
Okay.
And it's something, and I hope it is not something also that CORD feel they are fearing, who are we talking to? Because the young people they used to talk to and come out on the street chanting now and saying, because for the first time, they boycotted, but nobody went on the street to say, why is it that IEBC is, even to, IEBC was in fear, they thought, oh, now we will not launch, but they launched it, and with peace. So I thank the young people. Now they are moving on to understand.
Allow me to say this, and where I differ with my sister. Miles, a roadmap to the next elections, one of the things it must talk about will be voter registration. And I can tell you, in Kenya, elections are lost or won at the point of voter registration. Prior to the last election, Kenyans were given 30 days. IEBC had a target to register 18 million people out of an eligible population of 20 million. How many people did they register? 14 million out of 20. The distribution of that 14 million, there are some areas in central Kenya that were getting 102, 105, 110% turnout. And there are certain areas that were getting 30% turnout. Why? Because of the distribution of the equipment that was used to register voters. A strategic plan addresses...
Were there no other reasons such as IDs?
A strategic plan addresses...
People coming out to register. Can you solely say that was the only reason?
Coming out to register means that you've been given an adequate window and you've been given adequate equipment. Previously it was manual and it was just a book. In the last election,
Granted.
it had to be technology. But the point I'm trying to make, Sophia, is that in this, what we are calling an internal document, IEBC has attempted to discuss how it is going to carry out voter registration. That is why I'm saying this is not an internal document. This is a roadmap to the next elections.
Okay.
And elections are won or lost at the point of registration.
All right.
Let me just clarify something about the last elections. In fact, when those who are turning out 101% and 30%, the now current court leaders were in power, raw power, and the current leaders, President Uhuru and Deputy, were actually outside. So why didn't the Prime Minister then, in his motorcade, ensure that things were done right?
No,
Why do you just blame
the Prime Minister,
corner after
no,
election?
Sophia,
Why
the
not
Prime
do it
Minister
before?
was not registering voters.
But he
Voter
was in
registration was being done by IEBC. Raila Odinga is not a man who takes advantage of his political position for personal gain. That is not the kind of leader. That is not the kind of leader we have. Everyone keeps saying Raila was in power. Why didn't he do this? That's not his nature. Raila thinks about this nation. And let us not forget that even after Raila goes and Kalonzo goes and Uhuru goes, Kenya remains. So we should write laws and set up institutions for posterity, for our children, not for the current crop of political.
I agree with the posterity, but I want to tell him.
Yes, you must go.
The former Prime Minister knows how to use his power to ensure things work. And that's why when you go to Bondo, it worked. So I don't know why he forgot. While it works and I want to remain in this power, I need to ensure voter registration is done in Luo Nyanza.
That is
100% is also done in Luo Nyanza. In fact, it goes to 120, 130.
All right.
It's all over.
Beatrice Elachi, who is Majority Whip in the Senate, Senator Homa Bay County, Moses Kajwang, and Ambrose Weda, who's a lawyer with us. And that is the way it is. Thank you so much for joining.